Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Deborah Kobylt Live. Have a very talented and beautiful guest in studio with me today, Ivana de Maria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Honored to have you here because I think you're doing stuff that's inspiring for so many people who have story to tell.
Thank you.
You are the creator, CEO of a new app called Story Place.
Yes.
Right? And I went through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a little addicted, and I'll tell you about it later. You're also an actress and a producer. You starred in Beauty and the Beasts on Univision.
Yes.
You are currently the producer of an upcoming Netflix show, executive producer Selma Hayek, right? Called
Monarca.
Monarca. I want to make sure I get that right. Called Monarca.
It's like the monarch butterfly.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The monarch.
Yeah.
But not the butterfly. You've actually done an awful lot, and you're also currently working on a series based on the life of war journalist Oriana Fallaci.
Fallaci.
Right? Fallaci.
Yes.
Fallaci. And you're doing that with journalist Giselle Fernandez.
Correct.
I'm a big fan of hers. Hello,
I am
Giselle.
too.
Please give a shout out to Giselle. I really am.
I really am too. Giselle has been a great role model and mentor and friend. So.
Yeah, good lady, good journalist. Anyway, welcome and thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. First, I want to start with this app. I want you to tell me, what is it about? It's for people who want to write stories, and it's also for people who want to read them, correct?
Yes. Well, exactly. It's exactly that. You know, I think that we live at a time when social media is definitely at an all-time high and empathy is at an all-time low. And these two things don't really make sense because social media really does have the potential to promote empathy. It does have the tools necessary to actually create connection, empathy, solidarity. However, it's doing the opposite. So I was very disturbed by this fact, and I kept thinking why this was the case. And I realized that along the way of social media, the ego got involved and it became all about the ego. And then there were all these elements that promote competition and mental health issues and all these different things. So I wanted to take the elements of social media that make it such a potential for promoting empathy and strip it away from the elements that are there purely to feed the ego. And so it's basically about sharing true stories.
And how long would they be? So someone, they would sign up on the app on
Yes.
Story Place.
Yeah, you sign up on the app, you create your profile with a pen name. So it's
You can't use your real name.
You can if you want to, but there's the option to have privacy because because I realized that privacy is a lot
interesting.
Well, it's a big part of why a lot of people don't share stories, true stories, because they're afraid of their privacy. They're embarrassed, you know. And so I really try to make it easy for people to share true stories in written format, very simplified written format, designed for the non-writers. And it really is about getting people back to the essence of story sharing, you know, when
people would just sit around a living room.
exactly, or even around a fire, tribes, you know, way back
Absolutely.
when. That was the essence of education, but we've really lost a lot of that, and it's been replaced with this idea of sharing that is really not a lot of truth. So
Well, what I think is, because when I look at, great stories, whether it's plays or on television or in film, it's always selected by someone else. It doesn't mean it's something I want to hear about, right?
Yeah.
So you've got writers who have all kinds of stories. They may or may not even be famous at all. And they can use their name or not.
Yeah.
And they just write. Now, how long are the pieces generally?
they can, I mean, as of now, there is no limit. It's basically less than 1,000 words, you know.
Okay.
But people, it really has varied. People write short things, people write maybe poetry, maybe some people write it in the form of lyrics, some people write a really long story. It really depends on the person. But the idea is that you don't need to be a writer to share a story. Because as long as you're a human being, you are made up of a million stories, experiences that make who you are. And that's the stories that we want to be sharing, because that's the stories that really eventually will be relatable. You know, creating all this false sense of truth with social media, you get teens, looking up to these people and to these, goals that are unattainable because they're not real. And so I really want to get back to the realness of what makes us human.
What about if you have a story on there and you're not using your real name, but somebody wants to pick it up and do a show with it or whatever?
That's a very common question.
How does that work?
Well, Look, with platforms in general, with digital platforms, even on Instagram, you can upload something and it's pretty much public domain the moment you upload it. So sure, you can get into legal things, but it's really public domain once you put it up on the cloud or on the internet or anything. However, if legally, technically speaking, if you wanted to take a story and say, okay, story placed by this person in this place, and because all the stories are tagged to where the story happened. So if you really wanted to do that, then you would have to ask story place for permission.
I see. Okay, good.
Yeah. And there is also an option to contact the storyteller. So there's a private inbox system that...
Oh, there is? Okay.
Yes, that basically allows for that. Say, for example, I read your story and I think, oh my God, I want to hear more because I'm a writer and I want to hear more and turn your story into a script. I can contact you, ask you questions, or maybe I read about how you have migraines and can't sleep, and I have a great solution for that, so I can offer that solution to you. So it really offers this connection without it being
intrusive.
Intrusive, yeah.
Do you own the content over at Story Place, or it's their content?
I mean, it's the user's content. We can't use it without their permission, but it's like I said, being a platform, we're content providers, not content generators.
Okay.
And so each user creates their own content.
Wow.
Which also frees you of a lot of liability with the stories themselves.
How many people are on there now writing their stories?
Well, right now the beta version is out, and there's probably around 4,000 users. And there's been a lot of traffic lately, more and more. I think people initially, get intimidated by the idea of, hey, tell me a story. And people are like, I don't know. And then they start reading them and they say, oh, I could do that. Oh, I have one of those. And
I have an uncle like that too. Wait till you hear my story.
Exactly.
Right?
And so you start getting more and more people, and then people reacting to other people's stories. It's really something beautiful. And I think the equation to this all empathy goal is separating listening from agreeing. And so getting to the point where you're able to read stories regardless of the fact if you agree with them, or if they go against some of your values, if they are against another sports team, whatever it is the case, recognizing that it is somebody's story already gets us one step further, I think.
You were mentioning social media, and sort of not all of it is very realistic. It is true. I'm sometimes I just have to step back. But, I have an entire platform myself on social media, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, but mine are so real that, my page doesn't exactly look pretty. It's just a reflection of what I'm interested in. If it's a news story, or if it's, something in my life, or a vacation, or someone very interesting to interview, such as yourself. It's a little eclectic.
Yeah.
But most of the pages I look at are sort of like perfect looking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the problem. You have this need for followers, for likes, for people, and I've spoken to influencers about it, and it is very hard on them too, because suddenly they have this pressure of, they feel like if they share a truth that is not beautiful, they won't get enough likes, they'll lose followers, then they'll lose the collaboration with I don't know what campaign and the brands and the...
It's almost too much, because how can you be a creator? How can you be an interviewer and then go over to the next room and be an advertiser, if you will? Yeah. It's just like old-fashioned advertising on TV and radio, right?
Exactly.
You had the talent, and then you had the ad department. And on social media, you kind of have to be everything. And I find it a little daunting myself, to the point where I just like, whatever.
I agree. I use social media for work a lot, as an actress, as for content, for Story Place even. But I definitely recognize it as a working tool, not a social tool.
Right. People have to be careful.
And you need to be responsible about it. I always tell people that have loud voices on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever, if you have a loud social voice, you have a huge responsibility and a huge opportunity. But before the opportunity, the responsibility that everything you're saying is being heard by all of these young girls, all of these young kids, and by people that are really believing what you're saying. So you need to be careful with what you're putting out there.
Yeah. You are very clearly very philanthropic, and you're somebody who wants to do something out there. I mean, I feel that coming from you.
Thank you.
You grew up, your mom was a businesswoman.
Yes.
And you're the co-founder of Dahlia Power, right? Yes. That you did with Mom.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it was really her vision. It is a center. It is an actual center, a physical center in Mexico City for female empowerment. My mom is a really big role model for a lot of women, and she kept getting the question, it's easy to tell women, oh, go get empowered. Oh, you should be empowered.
If that, I can't even use that word anymore.
Exactly.
Right? Am I right?
Exactly. But then, my mom said, well, there's no 1-800 Empower Me. So where do you go?
Probably
to do
is,
these
but
things?
who knows what it is.
Now
right?
it probably
Who knows? 1-800-EMPOWER. Somebody call and let me know what it is, please.
Exactly. Well, and so she decided to build a center where women could actually come and take classes, courses, build a network, find a role, find a mentor, find other women that they could talk to, whether you were a mom trying to start a business or an executive trying to be a part of a board for a first time. Just basically somewhere that could give you the tools necessary to take whatever you want to take to the next level. And it started in Mexico City, and it's really built as a franchise model to replicate all over the world. There's already a network that's being built, kind of like a LinkedIn for women, let's say. And
women everywhere?
Women everywhere.
Oh, I'll join. What's it called?
Dahlia.
Dahlia. Okay, so Dahlia. I'm actually going to put myself on there. You never know.
No, yeah, and it's great because, if you travel somewhere and you can go on Dahlia and find other Dahlias and find courses online, and it's really great. It's a great program and a great environment and a great network of women.
Yeah, I mean, you help people with jobs, right? You help them find jobs, obviously.
Of course. And not only that, I mean, the first step is believing that you actually can. And then, once you face something that you don't know how to do, okay, let's figure it out. Let's give you the tools. Let's connect you with the right person. So it's really about that.
Yeah, and I know that you also teach women. You have courses on technology.
Yes.
Which is very important. And are you sort of one of the CEOs? The CEO of YouTube, right, is partnered with you, or is he?
No, you mean for Story
on your
Place?
Board?
Yes, on the board of Story Place there is.
Okay, I'm getting it confused.
Yeah,
I had it right
Story
down
Place
here with
and
Dahlia.
Dahlia.
Hang on a minute. Okay, so it's Story
They're
Place.
similar.
Yeah. No, it's Story Place. Let's back up a minute. Who is on your board there?
Because
you got some big chops on there.
Yes, Esther Wojcicki. She is the mother of the CEO of YouTube. And she is an incredible, incredible woman. She is really an icon in Silicon Valley. She actually she just wrote a book that's coming out in a couple of weeks called How to Raise Successful Children. And I am dying to read that book because
one of her
daughters is the CEO of YouTube. Her other daughter is the founder of 23andMe. She has incredible, incredible daughters, and she's been really great with Story Place, with my career, with just in general life. She's been a great mentor. So
I mean, that's massive to have that behind you.
Yeah, she's really.
How did you do that? How did you find her? Or did she find you?
I met her through my mother.
Wow.
My mother has been really the essence of everything I do because at the end of the day, she's the example that I follow. And she always told me that. Whatever you do, you need to be passionate about what you're doing, turning your passion into profit. And then, more importantly, always, what do you want to leave in the world? What is your footprint? What are you going to... She actually asked me a question once, and it always stuck to me. And it was, how do you want your grandkids to talk about you to their kids? And really, when you think about that, and I start thinking of all the stories that I want my grandkids to tell their kids and how I want them to be so basically confused to define me because I do so many different things.
That's great.
And that's something that I aspire to.
That's what creators do and entrepreneurs do. Yeah. Now, you were born in San Diego.
Yes.
Raised in Mexico City, and you went to school in Switzerland and also in Boston.
Yes.
That's quite eclectic.
Yes.
But that has such an impression on you, right?
It did. It really did. Leaving Mexico City was really eye-opening, and especially to Switzerland because it's such
very different. I've spent time in both. I know them both. I am a big fan of Mexico City.
I'm a big fan of both, but they're very, very different, quite opposite in many ways. And really going to Switzerland, I think the most valuable thing about it was the people that I met. I ended up with a group of friends from all over the world, really, really all over the world. And it really opens your eyes to other languages, to other cultures. And you said something earlier about the content that people create is the content that they want you to see, right? But there's also a side of it, which is that the content that people create is the content that they know. And so people basically create and write what they know. And I realized that by me going to Switzerland and Boston and meeting people from all over the world and really opening my eyes to other cultures and realizing what else there is out there, it made me a better creator because it made me realize, first of all, that what I know is not entirely everything, and it's not the center of anything. It's just a part of it, and it's one perspective. But then you open your eyes to all these other perspectives, and it makes you a fuller person.
Yeah.
I think traveling does that.
What did you study?
Finance and law.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy. Well, you're a chip off the old block with your mom. Your mom's a very successful business person. I think
Yes.
that's great. But it gets you always thinking about,
Definitely.
your place in the society of women and how you can make a change. Tell me a little bit about your acting career.
It's been very interesting because when I graduated from college, I studied finance and law knowing that I wanted to be an actress. But I wanted to basically have the theoretical side of finance and law. I was always very curious about learning. I am still. And so I wanted to learn that, but I knew I was never going to actually work within those industries. However, they were tools that are helpful for everything you do.
Tools, that's
Yeah.
the word, tools.
Yeah. And so when I graduated, I moved to LA. I started acting supposedly full time. And then I very quickly just went insane because I couldn't bear this system of wait for somebody to call you, wait for somebody to believe in you. This egg and the chicken and the egg with the reel and the credits and the opportunity and the reps. I
It's
said,
like-
this is ridiculous.
It's a little bit of chance. I mean, but you got to be out there all day and just hope that the right
Yeah.
person sees the right clip.
And you need to be
yeah.
patient, and you need to find other things that allow you to act financially. So I decided I was going to create my own content.
Great.
I had a moment when I said, wait, what is happening? I have a phone that records 4K. I have a free distribution channel online. I have a story. I have friends who are creatives. What am I waiting for? It's a different time. There is no barriers for entry, really. In
Zero.
That regard.
Yeah.
So I decided to start creating my own content, and I did. And I opened a production company, and I wrote a character that I wanted to act, and then a script, and then I produced a short, and I acted in it. Then I did another one, and I became in love with the idea of the entire storytelling, from writing to producing, acting, even editing, the whole thing. It was just magic to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way because when I have 3 boys, and when I decided I wanted to start working more again, I was working at CNN, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll go back there. And then I thought, wait a minute, do I want to be somewhere 5 days a week where I'm running off to the latest story? And I'm like, no. But they've always been great.
Yeah.
And I thought, let me create my own content and
Exactly.
interview people that I find interesting. And I love it. How to make money with it, that's a whole different
Yeah,
story.
it's a whole different story.
Well, you've got to really work on it, and that's the whole advertising part. It's like, oh boy, I need a partner. But you're right. Creating your own content really is very satisfying.
It really is. It really is, and it's also terrifying.
Yeah, of
it's
course.
terrifying, and it's not easy, and it also requires a lot of discipline. That is the one thing I think that has been my constant lesson is you need discipline, especially with story plays now and acting and producing. It requires you to be your own boss, your own worst critic, and your best critic at the same time, and your number one fan. And so it's a lot of work.
What stories do you like to read? What do you enjoy reading?
I really like true stories, all true stories. I right now my goal is to keep producing based on true stories. I think that is where content creation and social responsibility meet. Getting true stories, giving them a voice, putting them on a screen, getting them, people to see these stories that need to be told today, like Oriana Fallaci's, which today is exactly the time for that story. So
I never even heard of her. That's
She's
terrible.
incredible.
Tell me a little bit about her.
She was an Italian journalist and war correspondent. She was in Vietnam. She was in Mexico, and she was shot in the student uprising in Mexico. She interviewed pretty much every single controversial leader all over the world. She wrote a book called Interviews with History, which is incredible.
What year?
What year the book? Or
No, was she very popular?
I mean, in the 60s, 70s, honestly, until she died in 2004 or 6.
But it's amazing because we didn't have a lot of stories about
Exactly.
female journalists. It was always
Exactly.
the guys that we heard about.
Exactly.
But there were plenty of women out there in the trenches if they were allowed or if they had the nerve to do it. Right?
And she was exactly that. And that's why I'm saying right now is exactly the time for her, because she was a woman that was way ahead of her time. And she was very truth to power. She fell in love with a Greek revolutionary. She had an incredible story, which is actually what we're producing. It's called A Man. You should read the book. It's amazing.
I will. A man?
A Man.
Okay, I will do that. No, I'll pretty much pick up anything if somebody recommends it.
Initially, I used to write only psychological thrillers and I love the mind. I'm very curious about people, so I love the mind. You know, when I hear, schizophrenic or something, I'm like, yes, I want to read that.
It is a curiosity.
It really is.
What makes us who we are? You know, there are days that we're feeling great, and there are days that we just want to sort of check out. And I know that I run that gamut, right? It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It's just the realities of life, right? The emotions of life.
Exactly.
I'm with you there. And it's really a curiosity to me.
It really is. It really is. And as an actress, I think my biggest lesson was realizing that nobody is a villain in their own story. Everyone's the hero of their own story. So when you really think about that, it makes you more curious about all these people that are considered controversial, that are considered villains, and which I always love acting villains. That's my favorite kind of acting. Yeah. Because it puts you in a situation where you need to get behind their head and actually understand why they're doing what they're doing, because clearly if they're doing it, they think it's the right thing to do.
What made them that way?
Exactly. What made them that way? Because I could go on and on about the human mind.
Wow. You are fascinating and such a smart and beautiful person.
Thank you.
I loved having you on. So
Thank you.
Story Place, you just get on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Download it, and that's it. Does it cost anything?
Nope.
Yeah. I was a little surprised. I didn't want to ask and embarrass myself, but I went on and I'm like, it's free too?
I didn't pay.
Yeah, it's like, you get all the way to the end and they go, it'll be $14.99 a month. I'm like, come on.
There is absolutely no fees involved. It's really just about getting people interested in sharing stories.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here. And all the success to you, really.
Thank you.
Just amazing. What's next after Story Place? Any idea?
Oh my God. I have no idea. I think Story Place will continue, hopefully, for a really long time. So there won't be an end to it, but more so a growth and more producing more and more content. I love stories. I love getting people's stories. I'm the kind of person that answers everyone on social media.
Oh, really?
Everyone.
I think that's so great. There's nothing worse than when somebody, you reach out to someone.
Yeah, I answer
and you wonder if they got it.
Everyone. Every message, every comment, every tweet, every Instagram. I answer everything. And I get a lot of stories.
It makes you so approachable.
Yeah. I get a lot of stories, and I love it because, I plan to continue learning through stories.
Storyteller, story interviewer, story everything. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I have to do a really quick promo?
Yeah.
Okay. You would love this woman, actually. Her name is Carla Perez. Okay. She's a well-known singer. She's also an opera singer. And on April 28th in Pasadena at the neighborhood UU Church, she puts on something called Jazz and Paz. It's actually very, very popular. And this is the end of her spring concert series, 2019. And it features the eclectic collective of musicians, Nick Mancini and his 9-piece band, the very, very well-known clarinet player, John Tagmeyer. And that's just like a really cool thing to do. I mean, Carla puts on all these shows in Pasadena.
That's great.
She works with artists and she works with poets. And it's just sort of a really interesting group of people that she collects and does this. But
I love live music. So.
Yeah, right? So it's April 28th. If you want to look it up, it's jazzandpaz.com. And I would suggest going. I think it's really going to be a fun night. There's a wine bar. And one more shout out to Stop Poaching Now. I'm big and involved in this. Damien Mander is in town from Africa. And tonight he will be in West Hollywood at Ago. And you can get a chance to win the finale to American Idol, for people who haven't gone. You got little kids, people coming into town. But mostly to learn more about what Damien Mander does to stop poaching, because we're really at a crucial part in our world where there's so many animals on the endangered list.
I agree. I could
so
not
that's
agree more.
Shout out to Stop Poaching Now as well. Anyway, thank you so much for being here.
You.
I enjoyed everything, and please look up the app. I think it's fabulous, really. Just even a little short story, right?
Yeah, or even read stories if you don't want to write. You'll get inspired.
Yeah,
I know you will.
It's wonderful, and it's private, and it's quiet, and you can do it in your own privacy. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for being here, Ivana.
Thank you.
And we will see you again next week on Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube. Our promos go up on Instagram, Twitter, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, just pretty much anywhere that you get your podcasts. Okay. So we'll see you later. Bye-bye.